Hello, and welcome to the Meet Your Species podcast. This is part of a larger experiment to see how many people it takes to fix our problems. We are listening to what issues people really care about so that we can use newworld.org, a free tool to solve issues, to find solutions to our problems together. For more information, check out heathstreet.co. Support for the website and podcast comes directly from friends like you. So, if you like the experiment and want to support it, you can do so for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/heathstreet.
Cool. All right, Gerhardt, welcome.
Well, good to be here.
Let's dive in, man. Let's start with getting to know you. So what was your childhood like? Were there impactful experiences or people?
Okay. So my childhood. Not really fitting my name. I was born in Florida, near Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I don't know. I grew up there until I was 5 or 6. Moved up to Atlanta. I would call myself a native Georgian at this point. I've lived here for 19 years now.
Been a minute?
It's been a minute. It's kind of terrifying, actually. It doesn't seem like it's almost been 2 decades, but here we are. So yeah, I mean, I had a pretty normal suburban childhood upbringing. I mean, there was no crazy. I don't have the great like immigration story or anything like that. But so it was me and my brother. My brother Kurt. He's 3.5 years younger than I am.
What's your relationship like?
It's good. Kurt, my brother, is he's up at Harvard right now.
Really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
He's in his senior year at Harvard. I think he is having a pretty tough time of things at the moment.
I can imagine senior year at Ivy League. Oof.
It's definitely not easy. He's awfully smart, so I guess he should be able to power through it. But I think he's got a case of senioritis combined with he's on the Lampoon.
What is the Lampoon?
So the Lampoon is Harvard's kind of semi-secret literary society.
Like the Dead Poet Society?
Kind of, yeah. That's maybe a good analogy. So, a bunch of comedy people have come out of there. The biggest, I think, would have to be Conan O'Brien, was a member of the Lampoon. So, yeah, he's one of the senior members there, and so he's dealing with all the compers this semester and having to read all of their work to decide who gets in this semester, and keeping up with all his schoolwork, and trying to think about like, what am I gonna do once I graduate? So I think he's a little overwhelmed right now, but hopefully he'll be fine.
Cool.
But yeah.
So, but you guys had a pretty good relationship growing up?
Yeah, it was. I would say it was a little bit competitive. I thought I set the bar pretty high in high school, but he surpassed me. He ended up being one. So I was always like number 20-ish in my class, and at a pretty big high school. There were 2,200 kids, I think, at my high school, Parkview High School. And I thought I set the bar pretty high, but he ended up being salutatorian and going to Harvard. So there's definitely some sibling rivalry there. But yeah, we have a pretty good relationship. I was texting him just today, just seeing how things are with him. So all in all, we did many of the same things in high school. We both did theater, we both did tennis, we both played instruments, we were both very academically motivated, I wouldn't say we're mirrors of each other by any means, but we followed somewhat similar paths, maybe.
You're on the same bandwidth.
Yeah, we can relate.
I like it.
Okay, so were there any... Would you say your brother or maybe some other people that maybe your parents or anybody who was just helped shape the way you think? Like what makes Gerhardt Gerhardt?
So one of the things that I remember my dad telling me in elementary school, probably 4th or 5th grade, I think it was probably relating to math. I have never had a great time with math. It's always my least favorite subject. If I struggle anywhere, it would be there. And I guess kind of about 5th grade was the first time that I was ever challenged by school. I just remember spending a lot of time on math assignments and just kind of being really bummed out. And my dad told me, I don't care what grades you get, all I care is that you do your best. And I really took that to heart. I may have gone a little overboard with it because, at what point, your best could be staying up for 3 straight nights, studying, or, I don't think that's what he meant.
Is that where you...
But that's kind of what I got out of it. I think that was kind of formative. It turned me into kind of a study monster, and I don't know. I think I have a really good work ethic. I think I owe that to him. Not just that individual moment, but I think that moment is maybe indicative of the general philosophy that I got from him. That was definitely had an impact on me. I would say in high school, I did musical theater, and I almost didn't do it.
Really? Why was that?
I don't know. So as a kid, I was pretty shy. I was definitely an introvert. I liked reading. I was a huge nerd. I loved Harry Potter.
Didn't we all?
Well, I really loved it. I had the Harry Potter backpack. I had the Gryffindor Quidditch sweater uniform. I mean, I was rocking 100% nerd. But yeah, I was definitely quiet in school and wasn't really one to speak up or I don't know. I just kind of kept to myself, and a bunch of my friends went into theater in high school, and it was kind of this guaranteed fun time.
Yeah.
So just intro to theater. It's just kind of goofing off with your friends. But I turned out that I loved it, and it really helped me get out of my shell.
Is it improv and that sort of thing?
I mean, it didn't have to be, but I got into improv and kind of relished improv. So yeah, it grew from just I'm just going to take this intro to theater class to, I'm going to do the full theater class, and then I'm going to do musical theater too, and then I'm going to be a thespian officer, and I'll also do the improv and comedy sports and just all this stuff.
Hence the do your best.
Yeah, hence the do your best. I went overboard with that too. It resulted in just not a lot of sleep in high school. Just 3 hours a night was a really good night.
Okay.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was straight up unhealthy and terrible. But I did very well. It paid off. I got a full ride to Georgia State University.
Okay.
Graduated, no debt. I made money actually off the experience, so it was. I would not have done it any differently. I really enjoy a challenge. I really like seeing how far I can push myself and performing at my best. And I'm kind of hard on myself. If I don't perform at my best, I'm my own worst critic.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, theater theater made me into a much more outgoing person who could deal with things on the fly just a lot better, and helped me also deal with just juggling lots of different things and time management and what have you. That was really, really impactful and transformative, I would say.
Cool. You said Georgia State, right?
Yeah.
So what did you study there?
So at GSU, I studied film and video production, and I graduated in 2012. So about just over 2 years ago, and it was a great time. Met a lot of great people there. A few of them who I'm still pretty close with. It's kind of strange. I find that most of my friends now are actually more high school friends. Wouldn't have expected that. I still have more high school friends than I have college friends, but I did meet a bunch of really talented people there who have gotten me to where I am now, and I'm working because of them. So can't complain about that.
Wait, so are a lot of those friends theater friends, or are they?
So interestingly, when I got to Georgia State, I decided to really focus on film. So I didn't pursue the acting anymore. I still kind of needed a theater fix, so I transferred over to the technical side. So I worked as the technical director's student assistant for 4 years there. Building sets, hanging lights, coordinating things,
Just everything.
just all manner of things. Learned a lot of cool things. Learned to weld. Learned to build.
Really?
Learned electrical stuff, carpentry. Really loved it.
That's
and
cool.
got a lot out of it. So
That's
yeah.
cool. My grandfather had a farm in Kansas, and he has like a big workshop. So learning to weld and how to just work with your hands is probably one of my favorite takeaways ever.
It's really relaxing, and I don't know, I really enjoyed it. Just like creating something. I've always felt the need to create. As a little kid, it was Tinker Toys, and then I graduated to Legos, and then I graduated to Kinects, and then I guess I kind of graduated into writing and creating things on paper, and then also in college creating actual like sets and lighting schemes and what have you. So it's always been kind of in my blood, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of interesting experiences. Were there any people when you were at college, like maybe professors or anything, that sort of pushed you in a certain direction you weren't expecting?
I would have to cite Todd Studebaker. So Todd was and is the technical director at Georgia State of the theater department. I got to know Todd over 8 semesters. I unfortunately only got to take one class with Todd, which was film lighting. But I would say that I learned a lot from him. He was definitely a mentor. I felt like of everybody I could trust him the most, and I don't know, could ask him for advice and what have you. So he is definitely, he is the gem, I would say. Yeah. So if Todd is watching, he was one of my favorite parts of my Georgia State experience.
Good deal. Well, hello Todd, if you're listening. Okay, so any other things you want to throw in before we move on to present stuff?
No, we can move on.
All right. So let's talk about the present. What are you currently doing?
So, at present, I do a bunch of things. So my day job is I edit. I guess at this point I post supervise and do a little bit of associate production work on a Discovery web series called Forward Thinking.
Just so in case anyone is not familiar with film stuff.
Sure.
Just briefly, what does that mean?
Okay, so with Forward Thinking, this Discovery web series, we will shoot the show, and I will get the footage, raw, just straight out of the camera, and it's my job to make it into something pretty that is enjoyable and entertaining to watch. So I take the footage, I cut it up, and then I go out and I find B-roll. So Forward Thinking, I should say, is it's a web series that focuses on innovations and technologies that are going to shape our lives in the near future. Occasionally, we'll have an episode about something that's really far off. Like, the current episode is on programmable matter. Basically, being able to manipulate matter at an atomic level to create anything you want. So you would have a vat of this putty substance or clay type substance, and you would type in theoretically commands into a computer, and it would tell those atoms how to arrange themselves to create a pogo stick or headphones or whatever. And then once you were done using it, you'd say, all right, I'm done with it, and they would turn back into clay or putty. And then you could use it another time for something else, something completely different.
That's a Thneed that's got nothing on the Onceler.
Onceler does not have anything on programmable matter.
Get out of here with your truffle of trees.
Nope.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. The problem with it is it's so cutting edge that even though people at MIT and Harvard are laying the groundwork right now, we're not going to see anything like this for another, optimistically, 50, 60, 70 years probably.
Oh, really?
It's way out there. But for the most part, Forward Thinking focuses on more current things. Solar energy. There have been recent advances in fusion power that in the next probably 5, maybe 10 years we are going to see starting to actually, affecting our lives on a daily basis. Just tech things that are on the near horizon.
That's fascinating.
So it's so cool. I get to learn stuff every day. I couldn't have a better job at the moment, honestly.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I will go out to these universities and sometimes corporations like Lockheed Martin, wind energy companies, space technology companies, and I will find video and stills of their technologies, and I will incorporate them into the footage of our host talking about them, and then I'll go out and the associate producing role part of it will be getting permission to use them, contacting the right people, and just making sure that on a legal front that we're all taken care of. Sure. So anyway, and then I'll put in music to it. I'll put in sound effects sometimes. Send it all out to an animator who will do a quick animation on something that there is no footage of because it's so cutting edge. Get that footage, that animation back, and throw it in. Get all the sounds that's mixed and put it in. Do a color grade and then export it and send it out. So I touch a lot of it at this point.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for about a year now, and we're coming up on 100 episodes.
Wow.
Every week we have a new one, so
I like it.
Definitely check it out.
That's Forward Thinking?
Forward Thinking. It's so we call it Forward Thinking, but if you're actually typing it out, it would be FW Thinking, as in forward on like a remote control or a VHS deck or something like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that is my work, and I love it, and I work with great people, and I'm always learning new and different things. And then around that, I write and direct. So at the moment, I have a horror feature film that I'm outlining, and I just this week sent out the outline to a few different people that have a grasp on story and structure, and I've gotten some feedback back so far, and I'm hoping to get back a little bit more, and then I'll dive into a first draft. So that'll be exciting. And then I direct all manner of little things on the side, music videos. You just starred in a little contest video that I produced and directed. I guess 4 weeks ago. So yeah, always busy, always trying to hone the craft of filmmaking.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you what would in terms of future aspirations for directing, like what? Do you have any goals?
So the goal right now is directing features. I think at the moment it makes most sense to go kind of the tried and true horror route.
Why is that the tried and true route?
There have just been a lot of directors that have gotten their start that way. I mean, Steven Spielberg, arguably his first big feature was it was a made-for-TV movie about a truck that hunts a guy.
Really?
Kind of. Yeah, it's I don't even remember if the truck has really a driver that we ever see. It's kind of just this.
Was it like Hard Candy or whatever that was?
No, God, Hard Candy is a horrifying movie. That's got Ellen Page in it. That's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. But so there's that example. Peter Jackson obviously got his start doing horror films. So
that's just kind of the way to go.
It's not necessarily the way to go, but it's definitely a way to go, and it has worked for a few people. So the advantage of it is you can produce something for a relatively low budget that will scare people and that people will want to watch. So yeah, that's what I'm focusing on right now. So the goal is to hopefully not get pigeonholed into that one genre.
Sure.
But I guess there are worse things. Being a working horror director would be better than being, a nothing director.
Yeah, or just a horrible director.
Or just a horrible director. So yeah, that's the eventual aspiration.
All right.
Let's see what comes of that.
Cool. So, are there any maybe film things that just maybe issues with the industry or maybe something you figured out in school that like... I felt like when I was in school, there were always things that I was saying to myself, this could be so much more efficient. Why are they doing it this way?
There's a lot of that in film school. I mean, film school is a learning experience. I think that feeling is pretty ubiquitous. One of my most eye-opening experiences. So I was pretty down on Georgia State at a time. I felt like the program hadn't taught me a lot, and it was like very disorganized, and the people were doing things inefficiently and whatever. And I was considering grad school at one of the big, your standard film schools, UCLA, USC, AFI, one of those big Los Angeles, extremely expensive film schools. So I was out there and I toured them and sat in on a few classes. And this may not be at all indicative of the overall program. I don't want to be, down on those guys. But the classes I did sit in on were not what I was expecting.
You mean in LA?
In LA, yeah.
Okay.
For the most, I was sitting in on graduate level courses. People who were spending more than that, $240,000.
That's the tuition?
I think that's everything at USC.
Ooh.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's
You better make it after that.
You better make it. I know it's like 55 a year. I'm pretty sure the directorial program at least is an obligatory 4-year program. So,
All right.
it's a lot of money. And you know, I saw kind of many of the same issues that I was seeing at Georgia State. Not that you're comparing apples to oranges. There are definite differences between something like USC and Georgia State University.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I kind of just think it goes with the territory that it's a lot of green people who are finding their voices, learning new things, making mistakes along the way. So
Do you mean in the students or in the teaching? Or?
I mean more in the students. I don't know if your question specifically referred to like on a teacher or organizational level.
I mean, really, I guess when I think of issues, I think of things that you can sensibly see an issue that could be resolved and isn't. Does that make sense?
I guess I think I see where you're coming from there. The film schools in Georgia, from what I have experienced, have definite ways to go. Georgia State specifically, I think, focuses too much on the film studies side and not enough on the production side, which has a much greater possibility, in my opinion, of getting people jobs and getting them to where they want to be.
Were there some lessons that you've learned since that you wish you would have they would have imparted to you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that Georgia State didn't teach me anything at all in a film sense, but the grand majority of what I've learned, technically speaking, and story-wise and even to a degree theory-wise has mostly come from getting out and talking with other people and learning in the industry and kind of trial by fire sort of things. It's a little bit scary. I think generally speaking, just a lot of people graduating from film schools are unprepared for what the reality is. Are
there any nuggets of advice you'd like to give to anyone?
No one's gonna buy your short film. That is the reality of it. I don't care if it's a Sundance winner. I know a guy who won an award at Sundance for his short film. And I mean, you may get a little recognition, and you may get like $500 to $1,000 for a really small distribution deal on, I don't know, Netflix or some sort of online content distributor. But so industry people for the most part are not at short film festivals looking for talent.
Mm-hmm.
And you're definitely not going to sell. You're not going to make a whole bunch of money back. I don't think personally, from what I've seen, that short filmmaking is a way to break into the industry. It may be a great way to hone your craft, to make mistakes for not a lot of money. That's not going to bankrupt you.
Right, you're not committing to this huge, long,
right. You're not going to be involved in something for 2 years and then have something finished and be like, oh no, this is not worth it. But yeah, I think it's a mistake to still be selling kids that make a short film and you'll be discovered that way.
So is that what they teach you in school?
That is, I think, still the overwhelming kind of expectation. Maybe it's not necessarily that they're teaching that they're teaching that this is gonna be a massive break, guys.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also not addressing that it's that the world has changed and and YouTube and Vimeo are the place where they're looking for talent right now.
Vimeo is interesting, isn't it?
Vimeo is an interesting place.
I didn't realize how many filmmakers are really on there, and it seems to be one of the best ways to make, like, to have a good way to get money back.
Yeah, you know, there's a whole department at Vimeo who just spend all day looking for good content. And I've known a couple people who've gotten Vimeo staff pick, which is where it's like kind of certified quality, essentially. And you get like Vimeo laurels, essentially, this little like logo that you put on it. It's like Vimeo staff pick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can get a lot of okay, I should qualify a lot being like not crazy amounts, probably not going to make a career amounts, but like you still get a little bit of traction, get a little bit of notice, get some views, maybe somebody will see it and like it, and you know you might be able to get your first job that way, your foot in the door maybe.
Yeah. Well, if nothing else, it's, you know, if you have something high quality like video wise versus YouTube, I mean,
YouTube is really not it wouldn't be my recommendation for you know trying to get seen for quality work. It happens sometimes, but Vimeo far and away is tailored more for the creatives and the people looking to put out content that is interesting and a step above, you know, that is pushing the boundaries one way in quality or in content or what have you.
Interesting. Do you have any thoughts on just what it's like to be an artist creating something, and if say just someone who's listening who's maybe not a huge film buff, but they want to support artists and like they'd love to find new great content. What's the best way to do it in a way that can support the artist without being like, oh, I have to spend $30 to watch a movie I may not like if you buy a DVD, but
you know, going to a local film festival is awesome. I mean, I know as a filmmaker that like having an audience there who, you know, is giving me time to look at my work is really appreciated, and answering questions for audience members is just a lot of fun.
So they have Q&As, that sort of
yeah. So like you'll screen your work, and then at the end of it, you know, typically the director will go up, and maybe some actors or whoever else who was involved in the production will go up, and there'll be a Q&A session. It's usually short, especially for the smaller film festivals. But the audience gets to ask questions like, how did you do that and that, and like what was your thought process behind, you know, whatever. And that's, you know, it's an easy fun time. Sometimes it's free. If it's not free, it usually doesn't cost a lot of money. You know, you can definitely support it that way.
So, being that we're in Atlanta, what are
some of the
film festivals?
Yeah.
Look for?
Well, I mean, the biggest one is the Atlanta Film Festival. I have never had anything in the Atlanta Film Festival, actually. But the Atlanta Shorts Fest is a lot of fun. When I was there, they did it at the Goat Farm.
Really?
Yeah, which is a really neat, atmospheric kind of. It has the feel of kind of like this, kind of, I don't know, almost like post-apocalyptic kind of industrial complex. And there's not a whole lot of anything like it. It's kind of like, I don't know what you call it. Yeah, are there goats there?
I don't think so.
There's
a turkey. That thing is not nice.
I think I've seen the turkey, but they shot a bunch of Hunger Games there. It's a really popular place to shoot movies, just because it's so textural and cool looking, and it's kind of it is an exhibition space for artists of all kinds, for film, for performance art, for visual art. So Atlanta Shorts Fest and I think the Atlanta Horror Film Festival, the year I had things there, they were both there. There's the Savannah Film Festival, which is pretty big. Athens has a few little film festivals. There are a bunch. There are dozens in Georgia alone. So yeah, if you live in a city of any size, chances are there's a local film festival that you can go out to and have some fun at.
Check it out.
Yeah.
So we got Vimeo, we got film festivals.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any things beyond the acting world that kind of maybe irk you or you wish would be kind of resolved?
In a local sense, I wish the Beltline would move faster. I love the Atlanta Beltline project. I've been following it for years, and at present it's slated to be completed in 2013-ish. And it's
You mean last year?
I'm sorry, 2030.
I was like, wait.
Thanks for catching me there. 2030, which is...
That long? Really?
Yeah. So, to be fair, it's a huge project. Right now, they are estimating it's going to be a $5.5 billion investment, all told, which for Georgia is massive.
Yeah.
A state that hates spending any kind of money on transportation or any kind of mass commuting anything.
Yeah, what happened to our high-speed rail?
Oh God! Don't get me started on high-speed rail.
No, do get started.
Well, that man, I could go on for that for forever. But the Beltline is going to be really cool. Hopefully I think it's going to be finished. But when it's finished, so it's going to be a loop around Atlanta, kind of in the same way that the 285 is. A little bit.
It's like an inner ring.
Yeah, it's a little bit inside the perimeter. Kind of, I guess, halfway between 285 and like the Capitol building, essentially.
Okay.
So it was devised by a Georgia Tech grad. It was
really? I didn't know.
Yeah, it was their I think like thesis project back in the late 90s.
It's been a long time.
It's been an idea for a long time. And it I guess like the past I guess maybe 8-ish years ago, it's first started like really gaining steam, momentum, and things started getting built. So right now, the stretch that's open is from Piedmont Park to really close to here, actually. Kind of it terminates in Inman Park, the paved section of it, and there's a little bit of a hiking trail that extends beyond that into Old Fourth Ward. And then there's also a section on the southwest side that is also paved, and in a state that like we can start using it.
So southwest is that College Park?
Yeah, ish.
Somewhere in that area.
Kind of down there. I guess I should back up maybe a second and just like, in case anybody doesn't know what the Atlanta Beltline project is. So it is a walkable. Initially, it's a walkable project that will ring the downtown-ish Atlanta area and provide a bike and walking path, and eventually light rail, and then
so like a trolley.
Yeah, exactly. They will go around the whole city, and along the sides of it are all of these other
like little branches, or
well, there's that too, but restaurants, and it's a gigantic gentrification project.
okay.
So wherever the Beltline goes, you can expect to see new apartments being built, new restaurants being built. It is an art space. So all along the sides of the Beltline there's sculpture and There's now the Atlanta Beltline Lantern Parade every year. So it's become this big like community kind of thing, and everybody loves the Beltline. I don't know anybody who doesn't like the Beltline.
Yeah, I love. There's like little art projects all along the side of it.
Yeah. It's just like it's super convenient. To Atlanta is such a automobile city. You almost can't go anywhere without driving. And it's so refreshing to have this option of, I can bike somewhere, and I don't have to worry about getting run over if I bike this.
I'm terrified. Like people scare me.
I love the idea of biking and cycling, but I would never do it in Atlanta. There is one exception, but except for this one person, everybody I know who cycles in Atlanta has been hit by a car at least one time.
Really?
Really.
I didn't know that.
And many of them have sustained, relatively serious injuries. Okay,
Obviously,
what do you qualify as serious? They weren't in comas or anything, but they broke bones. One guy almost lost an eye.
How do you almost lose an eye?
If you get hit in the skull hard enough by a car, yeah.
That's not cute.
No, it was not. It was not cute. I don't trust drivers in Atlanta. Drivers in Atlanta don't know how to share the road. Cyclists in Atlanta are sometimes part of the problem too. Also, it's just hard. There's no right answer. Sometimes everybody is to blame. I've definitely seen cyclists that, are not obeying, running stop signs and red lights, and it's like,
that drives me nuts.
You're asking to get hit by a car. Sorry. And I've seen plenty of aggressive drivers running cyclists off the road. So all I'm gonna say is that it's just not a cycling city, and it's not gonna be one for decades.
So how do you transition that? Do you think, because part of the issue seems to me that Atlanta is so poorly designed streetwise that it expanded too quick. It's just not designed well, so there's traffic, which just makes people frustrated all the time because there's always an accident. There's always if you did a time lapse of Google Maps, just screenshots during rush hour, you'd be
it's miserable.
How?
Yeah. So how do we solve that? How do we start transitioning to something better?
Yeah, how do you make it more friendly for bikers and pedestrians? Apart from the Beltline's great, but
the Beltline is great. I appreciate what they're trying to do with Ponce de Leon Avenue.
So what do they do?
So Ponce used to be a 6-lane road running east to west from Atlanta out to Stone Mountain and eventually really all the way to Athens, Georgia. But they have turned it into a 4-lane road, and they've added bike lanes to it. And it's kind of, it has made traffic much worse on Ponce, taking out a lane on each side. But honestly, Ponce shouldn't be the only road, servicing. Ponce is just overcrowded.
Yeah, I hate that if you want to go to Decatur from downtown,
Ponce is really your only option.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. I think a MARTA expansion would be huge.
So where do you think we need to expand to?
So right now, MARTA stops kind of. It goes a couple stops beyond 285, but generally speaking, it stops at the perimeter. And the grand majority, Atlanta's a commuter city. Everybody lives outside the perimeter. And the only way to get inside, to get into the city, is via highways. So, this is not, again, this is not the silver bullet. But expanding MARTA, pushing it further out into the suburbs so that you would actually have access to the city from further out, I think would be a huge help.
I feel like I live in Norcross right now, and at least in Norcross, I have to go down Peachtree Industrial, and then I have a choice. I can go east or west onto 85 and take 400 or 85.
Right.
But I mean, there's always accident or construction, and then I'm like, oh, this is gonna take
in rush hour, it's just you just don't drive during rush hour if you can avoid it. But yeah, I mean, I think that would be a huge help. Which would relieve a lot of the congestion on the inner city roads, which then would also make it a little bit safer for cyclists. So that combined with the Atlanta Trolley Project, which is another small step in the right direction.
So give us a little detail on that.
So the Atlanta Trolley Project is sort of, I guess it's kind of beginning to get politically rolled into the Beltline as well. But initially it was going to be completely separate. So it's a streetcar project that connects a bunch of the downtown and Sweet Auburn districts, so around Georgia State University.
So it's the Sweet Auburn, that's like the Martin Luther King area.
Yes, exactly. It runs near the Capitol building, runs all through Georgia State. It will. It's made traffic a disaster for years down there.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing. I support any investments in the transit system at this point. I was extremely irked a couple years ago when the big T-Splost initiative on the ballot was defeated, which was not a surprise to me, but was just like, what are you thinking? Like, how long can we go without putting money into infrastructure? Like,
Yeah.
I know nobody wants high taxes, but it's not like you don't get to, like, it's not like, oh, that money goes away. You get that money back in the form of nicer roads and lower commute times and high-speed fiber optic internet and extended model lines and airports.
Please, can we get better internet? Like,
Internet in the U.S. is just...
it's pitiful.
Yeah, it's internet is kind of under siege from big corporations in the United States. You have the likes of Comcast and Time Warner who want to squeeze every last penny out of you at the same time while not providing fast internet speeds at all. I mean, sometimes it feels fast. But you look at someplace like South Korea, who enjoys literally 10 times faster internet speed.
Are they running 100 megabits?
Yes.
So they're running the speed of Google Fiber.
Yes.
And
for $40 a month on average.
Oh my God.
So for pretty much exactly the same money that we pay now for our internet or cell phone. They are paying and getting 10 times better quality.
Ridiculous.
And, it's... So there's that. There's net neutrality, which is a whole nother can of worms. That again, that lobbyists are trying to corporatize.
Give us a little bit of net neutrality. What's your...
net neutrality... So I guess the core idea behind net neutrality is wanting to keep the internet free for everybody. Right now, there's a big push to create internet fast lanes that users will pay more to use to get faster internet. But which maybe sounds okay, but the way it can be and is being used is for suppression of data and information delivery. So providers are, on the one hand, shaking down people like Netflix.
There was a thing about that, wasn't there?
Yeah, charging them money to use the same wires that everybody else uses, just because more people are using it.
But don't you think there's a little bit of an argument where streaming HD video is so intensive?
I see maybe the argument. The slippery slope scenario here is, with this ability to control who gets things faster, you can very easily actually limit information. So let's say I'm a corporation and I don't want you finding out about the fact that I am
limiting your bandwidth.
Oh, I was going to say something more nefarious. Like, I am using children in Bangladesh to make my products for really small, like pennies an hour, and I'm also harvesting organs from them on the side, and
they collapse.
Yeah, and then sometimes I also just I don't know, I do other terrible things to them. So there's information that I don't want to get out. I could make that the website that is carrying the news report on that way slower than my sponsored site, which is running an article about how great I am, and how great my record is on my labor record is. So I don't know. There are arguments both ways. I will say that everybody, generally speaking, people who are concerned with equal access to information and data and knowledge are almost always proponents for net neutrality, and people who are concerned with profits and who have a stake in their bottom line are always against net neutrality. So I kind of feel like I'm gonna side with the people who have nothing to gain in the matter.
Totally.
So there are two sides to every coin, and I think pretty much everything is a gray area, and there's no full right or wrong one way or the other. There's always an argument to be made one way or another. But
it's funny. I love the idea of everyone being on equal terms, but I just wish we had a common base knowledge, of just what is true, and then we can debate opinions all day long.
Right.
But when you're debating facts, that's
debating facts is frustrating. I mean, global warming is kind of like the the ultimate example of debating facts. I mean, it is a fact that. I mean, yeah, it is a fact that even me seeing liking to play in gray areas, it's a fact that humans are contributing to climate change, and not only that, are the main contributors to climate change, and that it is going to be a huge problem in the future, and if we don't do something about it really, really soon, we're gonna be in serious trouble. And it just really irks me that people with a platform, like news outlets and talk radio hosts, will still debate and sell the facts of global warming and climate change as opinion or as fantasy, and sell this charade to people. It really irks me. There are few things that irk me more than climate change deniers.
for sure. Is it? Are there any arguments in here that you understand why people believe it, but it's just not true? That kind of thing.
Are you saying that like I can appreciate why somebody would be skeptical of climate change?
Yeah, or
Rephrase your
maybe
question.
are there any arguments for denying climate change that are well thought out paradigms, but that doesn't mean that they're true? So there's just a well thought out argument, but that doesn't mean it's an accurate argument.
You know, the only arguments. So yes, there are arguments that have been made that climate change is not real, that it's a natural cycle, and the biggest one I think being that we have only been keeping records for weather data since about 1880. You know, so we only have a 130-ish year window of data to look at. This is very likely just, I don't know, a short-term trend. How can we be sure that how can we as people so small affect something as big as the Earth? And I kind of I just don't buy any of that. If you look at any of the data, any of the studies done, 98, 99, maybe more percent of them, you know, in equivalent.
That being scientists?
Scientists, real scientists, you know, all agree that climate change and global warming is happening and it's our fault. But even allowing, like, okay, maybe there's a chance it's not us. Maybe it is a natural thing. Do we want to take the chance? Like if it's 50, even let's go extreme here. Let's say like there's a 50% chance that it's us and a 50% chance that it's not us. But if it is us, if it happens and it is us, you know, the global order is going to be upended and millions of people are going to die and sea levels are going to rise, and there will be food shortages and famines and civilizations will collapse.
And 80% of people live on the coast. So.
And 80% of the people live on the coast, and all of these cities are going to be inundated. New York City will be underwater. You know, how many billions of dollars worth of infrastructure will be lost in that city alone? You know, when that is the risk, like, do you want to take it? Like, why would you not? You know, if I'm playing Russian roulette with, you know, a gun that has 2 chambers, why wouldn't I do everything I could to
never have to play that game?
To right. So anyway, that's my biggest like conclusion on it. Is it worth the risk? And I don't think it's worth the risk. You know.
Well, and the funny thing to me is that I feel like people that are denying it are focused so much on trying to make a counter argument, that they're not thinking, okay, let's say it's a natural cycle. It's still happening.
Right.
Right. That doesn't change.
It doesn't change. I mean, and you know what, the worst comes to worst. We find out in 100 years, oh, it was a natural cycle, and like, it's great now. Like, climate is great. No famines. We didn't have to, you know, we didn't have to relocate millions of people. Blah blah blah.
And everything's better because we made everything more efficient.
And everything's better. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why. The worst thing that happens is that we get a cleaner planet to live on, and better technologies and more stable energy sources, and you know, all sorts of things. And all we've lost is, you know, a few. Okay, not a few. But all we've really lost is a couple $100 billion probably in switching over. Sounds like a lot of money, but I bet 100 years from now, people looking back on it saying, man, all they had to do is invest $100 billion to like change world history.
Yeah, and you look at how much we spend blowing people up, or how much we spend on all these other insane things that don't benefit us long term.
Right.
I was just listening to a Freakonomics podcast, and they had this guy who he took. So you know how there's all these humanitarian efforts all over the world, like, oh, we have to save pandas, global warming, this or that. Well, so Freakonomics, as economists, we're thinking, all right, let's look at everything for return on investment, because if you're gonna invest all this money, let's start with what makes the most sense and get the most of our money first. So they found this guy who had this thought, there has to be a list of all the different things ranked like priority, like what makes the most sense to go up first. And there wasn't, because, you know, if you're trying to save pandas, for example, well, you don't want to compare that issue to all the other ones because it might not be at the top.
Right.
So that was, no one had done that. So when he did, he's trying to give talks to everyone, and it comes out that a lot of people don't like that their issue is on top, but a lot of people actually have respect for it because it's still numbers are numbers.
What issue is on top? I'm curious.
Well, they never really actually covered that.
Oh,
they didn't cover the list, but
okay, but it exists, and we can go look at it if we want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think the main point was that it's important to put things in perspective and put take the time to do the numbers and everything.
Right. I much agree.
Let's see. Oh, we'll get you going on high-speed rail.
Oh dear.
So let's just start with what was the original plan with high-speed rail, if you know.
So I don't. The high-speed rail project that I know of, there was one that was going to be a big Florida line. I'm not sure I actually know of any that recently have been proposed for Atlanta. You know, I mean, obviously there's always the thought of let's make MARTA faster, but
if MARTA was maglev,
it'd be pretty great. It'd be maybe overkill. There in 2 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar with any high-speed rail projects designated for Atlanta. Do you know?
Well, I just remember.
Don't?
So when I moved here, I was 16. That was 2004, and at some point between then and 2007, when I was living it was up in Hall County, just about an hour north of Atlanta. My across the street neighbor was an electrician who worked at one point, I don't remember exactly when, on a high-speed rail something for Atlanta. I don't know a whole lot because we were close, you know.
Okay.
But anyway, I just assumed there was a project. I guess there might be.
The highest speed rail currently in Atlanta is the MARTA line that runs up the stretch that runs along 400 and hits about 70 miles per hour, which is pretty damn fast, actually.
I compete with it sometimes when I'm right next to it.
Yeah, it's a speedy stretch of track. I mean, you know, I was just in Chicago, and I was struck by how kind of slow their metro system is. And usually seems to be topping out around somewhere between 35 and 45 miles an hour. So.
Is that the old L train system?
Yes.
Elevated one?
Yeah. So that's the fastest stretch of high speed rail I know of in Atlanta, and I think technically you can qualify that as high speed rail. They're the main ones I know about. There's one proposed for the Northeast, like a DC to I think Boston line, that is really at one point it was like yeah, we're gonna do this, but I think now it's kind of like we're thinking about doing this. Maybe we'll do this one day. There was a stretch of Florida line that was going to go. Orlando was on it. I feel like it must have been Orlando to Miami, and the governor refused the federal funds for it on principle, just because I don't want any of this Obama money. So forfeited several $100 million. It might have been close to $1 billion worth of federal subsidies for what would have been a really killer line. And then that money went into the California one, which currently in the United States is definitely the most advanced in a sense of like actually moving along. So eventually, if things happen the way they're supposed to, and I think zoning has begun and groundbreaking might have started on the first stretch. But eventually there will be a line of high-speed rail going from San Diego to San Francisco. And then near LA, there will be another line that runs out to Vegas. And there's also this maybe other line around connecting Salt Lake to Denver. And there's an idea to connect then Denver to Vegas. So you would have this interesting kind of like T-shaped network of high-speed rail on the west and western Midwest side of the country, and I kind of love any high-speed rail projects.
Yeah. I love riding on trains. They're fun.
They're great. They're an extremely safe and efficient way to travel, and I think we kind of need them in the U.S.
It'd be kind of hilarious to me if we went, Industrial Revolution trains, then to planes, then back to trains.
Well, yeah, it would be a little ironic. The technology has progressed a lot.
You mean we're not still shoveling coal in there?
But yeah, I mean, being able to go this proposed line would at times hit 200-ish miles per hour, 180, 200 miles per hour. And to be able to do that on, the great thing is that you can power that via power plants, not gasoline in cars or in plane engines. So and power plants are just way more efficient at capturing carbon. They're just much cleaner. So being able to have all that additional transportation for a lot of money, but you're offsetting costs that you would have to put elsewhere. So like, I think the latest numbers I saw were it's gonna be like 100 to 120 billion for this whole line. But if they don't build this, they're going to have to spend over the next 20 years an additional $100 billion upgrading airport facilities and upgrading highways to service, the expanding population. So you're going to spend it one way anyway.
Yeah,
why don't you just do this other clean, cool thing that is like, it's very enjoyable to travel in, very fast, and would create just a ton of really high-paying jobs in the United States.
Yeah, as much as I love road trips, I think it'd be pretty kick-ass to have a job as a train driver, 200 mile an hour all the way across country. I'm down.
It'd be pretty great. Yeah, I have to agree.
I think one of my goals in life is to go on the Trans-Siberian Railway.
Oh man,
That week-long trek.
That would be an experience. I know nothing about that. As much as I just seem to have come across as knowing about trains and rail, I know it exists. I know it's a thing, but I don't know how much it is. I don't know where it starts and ends.
Because Putin doesn't want you.
Putin no ass. No wants you to know.
Yeah. No. All I really know is that it crosses Siberia and that it takes, I think, like a week and a half to take the whole trek.
It's a long way.
But for me, traveling that far, so there's a documentary that Ewan McGregor and a buddy of his did where they took motorcycles, and it's called Long Way Around. I think it's on Netflix. Okay. But they took motorcycles off-road all the way from Britain, down through Europe and then Asia, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, Mongolia, all that. And then when they did Russia, they went through the Road of Bones, which is That was even the whole thing. Do you know about the
I don't know about.
The Road of Bones is, so I think starting in like the 20s through the 40s, Russians made all these basically prisoners work to build roads in this part
Sounds
of Russia.
about right, yeah.
And the reason it's called the Road of Bones is because it gets so cold that when people died, it's not if but when, it was easier to build the road on top than to dig under and bury them.
Aha.
So it's literally
just paved over them.
Yeah, and a lot of it's not paved. And, like,
oh, good.
Out. So it takes these like giant, fucking deuce and a half military grade trucks to traverse these waters, and then even then some of them. It's a really interesting documentary to see them do all this.
Okay.
But anyway, just to see how because I think especially as an American, and particularly a suburban American, I just have a limited view of what the world is like. I can watch YouTube videos all day long. I can go on the internet as much as I want, but it's not the same as being in rural Russia, or
it's a whole different world.
Yeah, and I want to see that. I want to be able to enjoy conversations or just watch the scenery go by.
Yeah,
sounds nice to me.
Okay, I agree. Getting out and exploring the world is pretty important. Having some kind of worldview, and an experience in that world, I think is pretty valuable.
For sure. Any other irks you've had? So we've covered net neutrality. We've gotten
a lot of issues. No irks, I don't think. No, I've vented a little bit today.
All right.
I'm sad about this week was a particularly bad week in private space exploration.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
But so really weird. So about a week ago, Orbital Sciences, which is a private company who, like a month ago, won a $1.9 billion contract to resupply the International Space Station with any kind, whatever they need. No people, just cargo. So this is one of their first. I think it was their third flight after winning this contract. It was their third flight somehow, but they're
so it's a private company that's able to go in space.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the rocket blew up about 6 seconds after launch. Major bummer, but even worse, like 5 days after that, Virgin Galactic Spaceship 2 had on its first test flight in 9 months, after retooling the engine and coming up with a different propellant mix. It disintegrated right after lighting its main engine, and killed one of the pilots and severely injured the other one. So it is. I'm pretty sure I can safely say that it's been the worst week in space flight since really the Columbia disaster, since Columbia broke up back in 2003. So and it's just weird that these things happen days apart. So it's been really bad, and I really hope it doesn't turn people off to private space exploration and travel.
It does really show how, no matter how long we've been doing this, that's a lot of explosive fuel that you have to have really tight calculations on.
It's tough. And honestly, I have been expecting like something was going to go wrong with the Virgin spacecraft, suborbital craft at some point. I mean, maybe it may be good that it happens now before they are putting minor movie stars on it, and
we don't need another Challenger.
No, we don't need that, and we don't need a very public like Tom Cruise dying or something.
Although I'm sure there are people that'd be happy.
I'm sure the Church of Scientology would be really sad, but there are definitely some people who would not. That's terrible to say, but maybe mind it as much as some others. So strange week in space, and it's kind of sad.
But isn't there's some interesting things going on with the thoughts on going to Mars, right?
Yeah. I mean, there are a few different Mars things right now.
Right.
And many of them have they have varying degrees of like feasibility. There's I think the Mars One project, which is this crazy idea that let's send some colonists to Mars and make a reality TV show around it.
A reality TV show?
Yes, and we will send them there, and we will send them there. We will pay for it by selling, by making it into a TV show, and everybody will watch it, of course, because look at the drama.
I mean,
and it's a one-way ticket, and so there's no return plan on it. It's just never gonna happen. I
don't know. I felt like I was reading an article on that, and there's like 200,000 people are wanting to do that.
They had a sign up selection process, however you want to call it. So there's interest, but the technical hurdles with getting to Mars, I think, are way beyond anything that a reality TV show corporation, whatever, is capable of. And man, God forbid that they die. What then? The risks both like to the crew and from a legal perspective of I don't know.
Jettisoning people off the planet permanently.
Right, and negligence and whatever. I don't know. I don't put a whole lot of credibility to that. There is SpaceX has stated that they want to get to Mars.
And SpaceX is another private.
SpaceX is my favorite private space company, founded by Elon Musk, also the founder of Tesla.
This is right. Yeah.
So they also won that $1.9 billion NASA contract to resupply the International Space Station. So both SpaceX and Orbital Sciences both got equal $1.9 billion contracts.
And SpaceX had a successful launch, did they?
Oh yeah, SpaceX has a pretty clean record. They've lost a few things, but not as spectacularly as this latest loss. But yeah, so SpaceX, unlike Orbital, will eventually be man-rated. So you will be able to. They have something they call the Dragon capsule, which astronauts will be able to ride up to orbit, to the space station, to a rendezvous with this future space launch system, which is right now supposedly the successor NASA space vehicle. So yes, SpaceX has stated that they would be interested in getting to Mars independently of NASA. So we'll see. I also I love SpaceX. They have done amazing things. Space is really hard to get to, and what they have done is incredible. But Mars would be a huge leap. For anyone. I'm skeptical that NASA can do it. NASA is trying to reach Mars in the mid 2030s.
With people?
With people. And it will take a lot of political stamina. That is a long time and a lot of administrations to cycle through. When the transition between the Bush and Obama administration was a nightmare for space. Everything didn't get thrown away, but many of the ideas got thrown out the window entirely. And we're got set back several years. So if that happens again, if every time an administration changes, we have to restart with a new set of goals, and and ideas, and if every president wants to like put their stamp on the space program and be like, no, I want this vehicle. Let's do this. We're not going to go anywhere for a long time. So
yeah. Well, then maybe it'll be up to private companies.
It might have to be.
So, leaving Mars alone for a second, what about the moon? I keep hearing things about people trying to mine on the moon.
The moon. So the moon is an interesting target right now for India and China. And there are probably a few private U.S. firms that are also interested in going there. NASA is not at all interested in the moon. They used to be. About in the Bush years, that was like the goal. Not the goal. It was the goal was still Mars, but that was the intermittent, the in between destination. As presently outlined, the goal is to send astronauts on a number of asteroid rendezvous, and then on to Mars from there. And the asteroid missions will be in the 2025 range.
Right.
We'll also see. But the U.S. has no reason to go back to the moon at the moment. Been there, done that, and.
You don't think it'd make a good launching point for future spacecraft?
Oh, it would. It would be great. There's a lot of cool stuff on the moon, but at present, NASA's budget is so small that you can't have it all. I mean, yeah, we could go to the moon where we've been already, or we could do these new things. You can't do it all. I mean, NASA's budget is half of 1% of the entire federal budget. It's they have money. They have a lot of money, and but NASA's budget has been flat for the past 4 or 5 years now, and the amount of things that are being asked to do with their money, which is about 18 billion right now. It's somewhere between, I think it's right around 19 billion dollars. Which is, still a lot of money, but comparatively to anything else, to Social Security, to Medicare, to the defense budget, it's a drop in the bucket. So you can't do it all. I support wholeheartedly doubling, tripling NASA's budget. I would be more than happy to kick in more tax dollars for something that I think is noble with this absurdly great return on investment.
So tell me about that. I think a lot of people think, oh, why are we going to space? We haven't even explored all of Earth. What's the benefit? What is the return on investment?
Well, okay. One, you have just the technology side. The things that we wouldn't have nowadays that have become commonplace.
Like Tempur-Pedic mattresses.
Tempur-Pedic mattresses are great. GPS wouldn't be a thing. We wouldn't be able to fight wars as effectively. We wouldn't be able to get around as effectively. Teflon came out of the space program. LASIK, dialysis, advanced solar technologies that are on the verge, that have made solar competitive with fossil fuels, comes directly from the space program. So and I mean, that's just a small list. That's just what I can name off the top of my head. I mean, the list just is expansive. Digital optics, cameras. If you like your digital camera, you can thank the space program for that. Computer technology, transistors. It just keeps going. It just keeps going and going. So there's that argument. There's just the pure knowledge argument of, knowing where we came from, and maybe not even these broad sweeping existential ideas, but knowing about the Earth. I mean, there's a big chunk of the NASA budget is devoted to Earth sciences. So monitoring sea levels and sea temperatures and the composition of the atmosphere, and
I didn't even realize that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Are they the ones that put out those little beacons all over the ocean so they can measure everything?
Or is that
Doubtful. So NASA is all from the air and from space. Probably,
so they're monitoring with satellites?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
It's maybe like NOAA then. Right?
Yeah, it's probably something like that. But so there's that, and then you have the argument of not being able to live on Earth forever. I mean, at the rate at which our population is expanding, we have 200 years optimistically to have, an alternative somewhere else, or completely rethink the way that we define life. Like, we would have to give up reproduction and having kids. At some point, Earth is not going to be able to support more people. And at some point, something bad will happen to Earth. Be it an asteroid impact, be it
climate change.
A war, be it climate change, be it a virus. So the future of our species rests on us innovating in space. And the idea of intergalactic travel right now is fantasy.
So you're talking like the Star Trek kind of...
Star Trek is... we will not see anytime... barring something extraordinary happening, space is just so big.
But have you seen I keep reading articles about this Mexican theoretical physicist that's they're trying to build something that essentially has a warp drive that like squishes space-time. So
Yeah, I have seen some of that.
I haven't gone too far though. What's
with everything I've seen about warp drive technology, like the physics doesn't add up very well. And we also understand physics at such an elementary level, I think, that I just think we have a long way to go. I feel like, 20, like, what is the year that everybody cites for like Star Trek and whatever? It's like 2,300 or 400 or 500.
Yeah.
I think it would be, if we are like that in 300 years, something crazy would have to happen. Some sort of crazy breakthrough on Earth.
But you don't even think with so if you look at like the population growth and the advancing of technology and society and such, since the Industrial Revolution, I feel like it's starting to asymptote.
Yeah, yes, but I think people don't appreciate how big an empty space is. I believe totally that in 80 to 100 years, we will be traveling through the solar system with relative ease. Where a trip to the outer planets will be a matter of months, maybe weeks. I'm gonna say months. I'm gonna stick with months. It's
Luckily, with 3D printing of organs, we might make it that long.
it's possible that the medical advances are kind of insane right now. So you could fit all the planets in the solar system within the orbits of the moon and Earth. That's Jupiter, which is 100 times the diameter of Earth, and Saturn, which is, maybe 2/3 the size of Jupiter, and they would fit comfortably inside of it. Any demonstration of the vastness of space is really pretty staggering. I mean, so Betelgeuse, which is a very large star, an extremely large star. Let me just say that, like, it's one of the largest stars we know of. But our sun would fit in Betelgeuse several thousand times. I mean, it looks like a grain of sand compared to Betelgeuse. So yeah, I mean, I just think the distances are so vast that maybe we'll visit another solar system. Alpha Centauri is a couple light years away, but I mean, multiple like big Star Trek level expeditions out into the stars, I think for a while are going to be pretty fictional. You run into all sorts of things. I mean, time itself is a problem. The faster you go, the more time is manipulated and time travels differently. The faster you go, time travels differently. The more gravity you have. Interestingly, this was an interesting article that I read this week. So clocks are becoming so precise now that moving them in elevation a few inches throws them completely off.
Really?
Because Earth's gravity has changed. 9 inches moving these clocks off of a table has an appreciable enough difference to completely throw them out of whack.
Interesting. Well, that's what we figured out when we went into space, right? That in orbit, the clocks don't
They
tick
do
at the same speed.
tick slower. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. It's totally weird.
So more gravity equals time goes by quicker? Is that?
Yes. Yeah. I believe that is correct.
It just blows my mind. Like, what do you mean? What do you? I love it though.
It's all very strange. To an outside observer, though, it moves slower, which is why as you get sucked into a black hole, you appear to freeze. Like there reaches a point that if you could observe somebody getting sucked into a black hole, they would appear to freeze on the event horizon, and they would be there forever. This frozen last image of you
Still shot.
stretched and dying.
None of that.
Thought. But anyway, space is a favorite subject of mine.
I could tell.
Yeah, I can talk about it for kind of forever.
All right. Well, let's look at the next 5 years.
Sure.
So let's start with what do you, just based on your observations of the world, your perspective, what do you think the next 5 years are realistically going to look like?
I think many things will be the same. I would be a little surprised if gay marriage were not legal in the United States on a federal level. That would probably be the biggest societal change that I would see in the next 5 years. I think the United States is probably going to have increasingly difficult time dealing with China. China a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, overtook us officially as the world's largest economy.
Oh, did they? They've already passed it. Oh, interesting.
And they are not going to take, their position as a minor power for much longer. I don't think. You see them being more and more belligerent with, there's a dispute over a number of Japanese islands that they claim as their own sovereign territory, and Japan claims
don't they
as
claim
theirs.
a lot of like the Indonesian islands and stuff?
Yeah, the arguments though you could kind of, I think, as I understand it, the arguments are legally better, more in Japan's favor. This is coming from kind of a Westernly informed standpoint, so I might be reading biased articles. That's possible, but either way, I think China is going to be increasingly assertive. Maybe not necessarily aggressive, but assertive certainly. I think are going to we will begin to see the first of the United States not being able to set world policy as much as it has enjoyed for the last 15-ish years. So yeah, China will be a major power. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. That doesn't have to be threatening. It could be threatening.
Yeah, it's. I think that the whole having China so blocked off from the rest of the world, like, not really knowing everything that's going on there, because a lot of the articles and things don't get translated. So it's.
Yeah, it's
just a mystery.
I am hopeful that it will be a positive mutual partnership, that it will develop into that. I mean, we have this excellent trade exchange going on between us that makes it really disadvantageous to start any major disagreements or fighting or whatever. But I would say China. I would very much expect China will push the U.S. further and further out to maintain a healthy buffer zone. They will increasingly deny naval access to the surrounding sea. They're already starting to do it. They'll push it further. I will be interested to see what they do about the U.S. having now an extended base in Afghanistan, which has very, very small land passage into, I forget if it's China or Mongolia, but either way, if I were China, I would be a little uncomfortable with how close the air bases are there. So I don't know what they'll do about it. We might see a bunch of missile batteries installed there out in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, the war on terror, I expect, will continue to be going for 5, 10, 20 years, honestly, as much as I hate to say it, but I would be much more surprised if it was not a thing in 5 years. I don't know how it couldn't be a thing in 5 years.
I think we're going to approach this point where there's just going to be an entire generation that knows nothing but what it's like for America to be in a war with terror. With a noun.
Yeah.
War on nouns.
America is always at war somehow. There's just very rarely a time that it's not. It'll be really interesting to see how it resolves itself. I don't know. I hope it only lasts 20 years-ish. It might last a little longer than that.
Yeah.
But hopefully we can get away for 20 years.
I guess we'll see.
I expect more instability in the Middle East. I expect some interesting tech things. Really hoping for a practical application of fusion.
Okay.
For energy. Yeah, I think we're close. Every week it seems like somebody is announcing a breakthrough fusion technology. How we're just years away. We're just like a couple of years and we'll be there. And that's been going on for years. It's kind of like the flying car. Like the flying car is always 5 years away.
Yeah, or there's a French company that came up with a car that runs in compressed air.
Perfect.
It was brilliant, and
hey,
still waiting. They were gonna do it in India, but I'm pretty sure that got politically squashed pretty quick.
I guess more power to them, but I'm really hopeful that in the next 5 years, I think we're actually close. Lockheed Martin has been working on this. It is a compact fusion reactor that is roughly the size of a refrigerator-ish.
Really?
Yeah. So the great thing about that would be you could have local power. So
It's like per skyscraper or whatever.
well, it would probably be a little bit more than that. But each community could, in theory, have their own
Nuclear reactor.
Their own nuclear reactor, yeah. And I mean, you know, and fusion power is totally different than fission. It's exponentially safer. You can't melt down. There's not this just continuous production of nuclear waste with it. So it is potentially like the miracle fuel that everybody has been dreaming for, and I'm really hopeful that we get it sooner than later.
Yeah. But you know, it's funny, I was watching, I think it's called Pandora's Promise. It's a documentary about nuclear power.
Okay.
And what they were saying was, back when we first started building these nuclear reactors, there was the type that we ended up building.
Thorium. Are you about to say thorium?
I don't know if it's thorium. I thought it was like a Type 4 reactor.
Continue.
It just basically, it can use 90% of the nuclear waste from the ones we currently use, and the way the reactor's built, it literally needs zero input from people. If
Mm-hmm.
like the meltdown happens, there is no meltdown. It just automatically is able to contain it without any issues. And we didn't build it because it's a little bit more expensive.
Huh. I've heard a story similar to that. What I understand is that we had okay, so that might be completely true, and I believe it. I believe that they would go with the less expensive option.
That's terrible.
Yeah, but there's also kind of near the advent of the nuclear age. There was the option to go with uranium-based reactors or thorium-based reactors.
Okay.
And thorium is kind of better in every way. More output of energy, like a tenth of the nuclear waste produced, much more stable, blah blah blah, goes on and on. However, the waste from the uranium reactors could be used and enriched to create nuclear bombs, which we wanted a lot of. So we went purposely with the one that produced lots of radioactive waste so that we could enrich it.
Cold War, man.
Cold War. So now, you know, I appreciate the fact that we needed bombs then, but now it kind of hurts that.
Yeah, well, especially John Oliver on his HBO show last week tonight. He had a whole special on the nukes and how the people keeping our nuclear arms protected, like the military personnel, they like left one of the doors just open. Then one guy like fell asleep. There's a whole special. It was hilariously awful. And then apparently we accidentally dropped 2 nukes in like North or South Carolina. Luckily we got off, but
yeah.
What do you mean?
It's actually remarkable that we haven't had an accidental detonation or nuclear war.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, you know, you read any of like the stuff that's been declassified since the breakup of the Soviet Union, it's just like, wow, we were so close so many times. It's just terrifying. Yeah, we...
Why do we make such terrible choices? That's what I want to know.
You know, when you... I think any system that's that big, I mean, at one point we had, I think, almost 10,000 nukes. And when you have that many of anything, I mean, things are bound to go wrong somewhere.
That's the thing with... So when I hear some conspiracy theories, I think to myself, they couldn't keep a blowjob secret for the administration. What are you talking about?
Right.
But no, they orchestrated... It's... Anyway. Well, let's look at... so that's kind of what you think's going to happen. But in the spirit of maybe deciding what we want to have happen or what we should focus on, what do you think would be your priority return on investment?
Oh man,
areas of focus?
what would I like to see done?
Yeah.
Gay marriage is pretty big for me. We're getting pretty close. Yeah, I am really excited to see the day that everybody is treated equally.
You mean equality is important?
Whatever.
I know why.
Those people, they don't need rice. But anyway, so I really hope we see that. I think we're gonna see that. Man, are we talking like pie in the sky kind of things?
Yeah, just what do you like? If it was people
just
are asking
slate.
you, what do you think we need to focus on?
I think we have a huge.
Well, first, let's define who we are, just so.
Okay, so the United States has a huge incarceration problem right now, and after gay marriage, all the dust settles on that and it's settled, and everybody has the same rights. I would like to see us start focusing on that because we lock up way too many people for crimes that we shouldn't lock up. It's just, these small possessions of drugs. It's just like, why would you ruin somebody's life over this?
Yeah.
California right now has 750,000 people in jail.
What?
Yeah. Also, the privatization of the prison system, I think, is another huge issue that I would like to see focused on changing because it is becoming very advantageous to keep somebody locked up.
It's pretty messed up.
Yeah, I mean, Nike makes more money the longer these people stay locked up.
Nike?
Yeah.
How's Nike tied up with this?
Nike's making shoes through prison inmates.
Oh, so it's no longer license plates. It's
No. There are a lot of things that are made via inmate labor now.
At what point does that just become forced slavery?
Yeah, I mean it's
yes.
I mean, in theory, like, I can see, again, gray areas. I can see the argument that, well, they're in prison anyway, like, this is potentially reformative, where they're gaining a skill that they can use after they get out. It's reformative in the sense that they're learning work ethic if they didn't have one already. And society is benefiting because, well, not society's not benefiting, but these corporations are making some extra money because they have an inexpensive local source of goods. But I don't think that argument is worth. I don't know. I wouldn't want to mess with that just based on the fact that, again, that it becomes profitable to keep people locked up for longer than they should be.
I just have a problem with, just personally, I don't like the idea of putting anybody in a box. That seems like, what are you doing? And I get it, like, oh, we don't want, like, crazy rapists and murderers and all that. I just, like you said, 750,000 in California alone.
Yeah.
That's, come on now, they can't all be.
It's a lot of people.
They can't all be endangering your life.
Yeah, and you know what? It would almost be okay, except that because there's so many people incarcerated, all the money right now is being spent on creating new holding facilities, whereas there's no money going into programs to help correct and get these people out of prison and set them up to succeed afterwards. Mm-hmm. If that were maybe something that were in place where we had a better track record of actually,
like if we actually wanted to help them,
right? If we actually wanted to help them, but yeah, as it is, we're just locking people up, and eventually when they do get out, they just go right back in again.
Well, yeah, because you've taken, it's like, you know how they have those schools where they would take bad kids in high school or whatever and put all the bad kids together. Yeah, that'll be good. Like, what do you
What
mean?
could go wrong?
Come on now.
So anyway, I would really like to see some, just even attention. I think it's really, I don't think a lot of people are aware of the huge problem that we have at the moment. And I would love to see, well, obviously I'd love to see more NASA money. That goes without saying. But also, I really hope, okay, actually two more things. I really hope that there is a real debate that happens with gun control. I think just long overdue, and I don't know, it will take something truly awful, like, you know, I don't know, 3 Sandy Hooks happen in the same week on election day. I mean,
Wow.
it will take something truly horrible. But so I don't wish for that, but I do hope that somehow, some way, we begin to address gun control with some sort of meaningful legislation or dialogue or whatever, that's not driven by hysterical ex-president wanting to take your guns away.
Yeah.
So would definitely love to see that, and above that, I really would love to see more money for education, which, you know, I don't know how to fix. Let's just say that I am not read on the subject enough to know how to fix America's education system. I just know that it is failing too many people, and it is not competitive with the world anymore.
Well, have you seen where Finland and I think Denmark, what they've done with their schools?
Well, I'm not sure I know exactly what you're referring to. I mean, I know their teachers have exponentially more control of their classrooms there. I know they're actually respected professions there. But what are you going to say?
So there's a channel on YouTube called WISE,
Mhm.
WISE. I don't remember exactly what the acronym stands for, but they have a whole bunch of series. And essentially what they did is they said, okay, let's just try and teach kids to have fun and help them figure out what they want to do and not worry about testing. Like, they literally don't test their kids until they're 16. Like, and that was just to see. And what happened was they ended up being top 2, 3 in the world.
They have an enviable education system. I think they're one of them is one in the world. I forget which. Maybe Sweden.
But yeah, that whole area.
Yeah, they have really top notch.
I just don't like. It is silly. It's silly with how much money we spend per kid that we're not doing what's most efficient.
Right. Right. So yeah, we need to focus somehow on it. You know, I know the political rhetoric is we're failing these kids, but we are, and the problem is that nobody goes beyond we're failing these kids to, you know, all right, let's do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't have a great solution, a silver bullet. You know, I maybe have a couple little ideas, but I'm no expert in the matter, so I wouldn't really want to talk on it too much. But
okay. Sometimes it's just good to know when you don't know.
yeah,
That's
it is a problem, and I think I'd really like to see it focused on more. It might be the problem. Having more enlightened people never hurt any society. And you can
There's too much smart.
Right. Only good things will come from that. So
For sure.
so yeah.
Yeah. Between the internet and good schooling, the amount of things we could do. Yep. All right. Well, I like to finish up these with just kind of a lighter note. So, what do you want to do in the next 5 years with your life?
Next summer. Oh boy. Okay. Putting this down into like a documented thing now. I have this goal in my mind. I'd like to next summer shoot my first feature film.
Okay.
It will be a little ambitious. I'm writing one right now that I think is going to be that. So we'll see. But it'll be a ton of work. It'll probably be from the data production. It'll probably be a year-long process, where that is like my main thing that I do after getting back from work and whatever.
Yeah.
So that is something that's definitely kind of in my mind. In 5 years, I don't know. I guess I would hope to have sold that film somehow, and made my money back on it, and somehow be, somehow be working as a director. Maybe not for a lot of money. Definitely not in any kind of like Christopher Nolan or Steven Spielberg sense, but be making the lion's share of my income from directing, and being able to like put on a business card, director.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's what I hope to do in the next five years, and to travel. I haven't seen enough of the world. I would love to go to Glacier National. Okay, so like the biggest goal, I would absolutely love to see the migration in over the Serengeti. Out in Tanzania, you can charter a hot air balloon and do a hot air balloon tour over the wildebeest and zebras and all the millions upon millions of animals that are migrating. And it just has always sounded kind of incredible to me.
Yeah, that sounds kick-ass.
Yeah, so that might be like my year 5 plan. But soon here, like maybe in the next 18 months, I'm hoping to go to... there's so many beautiful places in the U.S., so I'm hoping to maybe get over to Glacier National Park before it melts.
Yeah, seriously. Not long.
Yeah. Only it's supposed to be by 2020. 5 years. We got 5 years to get out there.
No.
So maybe doing a little bit of traveling, seeing some parts of the world I haven't seen, and yeah, working on a career.
Yeah, cool. All right. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to plug? Do you have a website if people want to get a hold of you?
Yeah. If so if you want to see any of my work, anything that I produced and directed or edited, I do have a website. It is myname.com, gerhardtslawitschka.com, but that's a mouthful. You can also find it through gsfilms.net.
gsfilms.net.
Yeah, they both route to the same place. So yeah, you can feel free to check it out. Look around. I've got some photography stuff that I do a little bit of photography as a hobby, and there's some of that there, and some films and projects I've directed. So yeah.
All right. Do you wanna plug these guys you work with here?
Oh,
what was it again?
Oh yeah. So you should definitely check out FW Thinking on YouTube. It is hosted by Jonathan Strickland, who also has a podcast called FW Thinking. Every week we have a new interesting topic that's somehow innovative or technological in orientation, and it's just always fun. We like to have fun with the show. It's about 4 minutes. You can learn a lot of stuff in a little bit of time. So I'd recommend anybody to check it out.
FW Thinking.
Yep.
All right, man. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right, everybody. That's it for this week. Or, well, I don't know how often these are. I'm not going to even say weekly. But anyway, have a great night, and I will talk to you later. Thank you for listening to the Meet Your Species podcast. The issues that were discussed today will be on heathstreet.co and in the YouTube video description, along with links to the issues on newrule.org so that we can continue the conversation. See you there, and have a fantastic day.